Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we'll get Overly Sarcastic Productions History Hijinks, another dumb Italy story. Now, I haven't seen the first dumb Italy story, but honestly, I don't care because this just came out, and I'm in the mood for a stupid story. I don't really know what we're getting into here other than Italy, so I'm immediately going to the trope that it probably involves food somehow. And if it doesn't, I mean, I'll still enjoy it, but I'll just be a little bit disappointed. Please involve pizza. I don't know why, but for some... It's because I'm hungry, that's why. And I'm sure that won't be a problem. More importantly, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up, and let's just see what's going to happen.
When I started researching this video, I'd planned to do a breezy little run-through of 3 bite-sized stories about Italian history.
Oh?
I've done it before, and I thought it'd be a great way to start
go
the
check
year.
that one out.
Light, simple, silly, perfect. However, upon...
Oh, so this was the start... It came out 2 days ago. Yeah, it makes sense. This is the start of the year story. So it's not just going to be 3 dumb stories, it's going to be 3 specific stories, unless he actually succeeded in doing what he intended.
Diving into the first of 3 topics, why
Italians were weird. Why Italian weird when English. Okay, that actually makes perfect sense. Antonio Stradivari was wasting his time making violins. That one time a Doge of Venice tried to do big treason. Only one time? Let's be honest there. If it's only one time, it's just like one specific time, out of many probably. I'm expecting the treason to be a very constant thing.
Italian place names sound so goofy in English, I realized I had thoughts and a lot of angles to cover.
Oh, so it's only going to be the first one?
Welcome to a dysfunctional...
Wait, are we getting an entire video of just stupid names translated to English? Sorry. I'm an English major. I went to school for this stuff, and stupid names are a little... I'm going to have fun with this one. Oh.
The background noise inside my brain whenever I say any place name in my videos. Because when you get a name like Firenze or Venezia, you say it and it makes you feel all classy. Oh, che bella parola.
Oh, what a beautiful word. So elegant. I am very fashionable.
Tanto elegante, sono alla moda. But then you bring it down to English and it's Florence and Venice, which is... fine, but those aren't the same sounds at all. It's weirdly flat and smushy, which is the phonetic antithesis of what makes Italian sound so nice. Those silent E...
Firenze is Florence. Ah. Middle stress, melodic cadence, nito Z sound. Forward stress, 1 fewer syllables, closed final S sound, closer to original... Wait, closer to original Latin. Oh! Sorry, that last one's actually surprising to me. That might be closer to the initial name of the town if it was Latin. But was it initially a Latin name or a derivative through, well, Italian?
E's on the end make the word feel like you gave up partway through. I mean, listen to how Roma becomes Rome. That one vowel difference robs us of a quarter of the word and half the drama. I wondered how on earth we got from that to this, and my first instinct was to blame French. This, being my first reaction, will obviously be proven correct because I don't know what foreshadowing is, but as a formality, let's do the rest of the...
France was a Romance language based off Latin as well, so it would have some interaction. Also, geographically, it makes sense, but why specifically the French as his first? He's probably seen things like this before.
The video anyway.
Did France just corrupt a bunch of languages?
Names for Italian places look suspiciously similar to the French names. I mean, Rome, Milan, Florence, Venice, they just sound like they belong in French. Surely the ironclad science of vibes would never lead me astray. I've studied French and Italian in school, visited both countries, and I'm familiar with the basic phonology of each language.
I have only a passing knowledge of Italian. I have no understanding at all of French, so I'm going to be completely in the dark on this one.
French is further back in the throat, a little more consonant heavy, emphasis often on the last syllable. Italian, by contrast, has greater focus on open vowel sounds and more melodically varied syllable stress.
I get that, but it's just weird considering between the two of them, the stereotype is French is the more sophisticated, romantic language, while Italian is more of the, hey, what the fuck is wrong with you? Motherfucker, get over here. I want my cannoli. I might be completely judging that based on family experience. No, but I'm completely judging this based on family experience. That is actually a conversation we have had with that accent in the Italian section of Boston. So it wasn't actually a joke. It was literally someone arguing about a cannoli. Oh, God, my family is literally the Italian stereotype. Oh, wow. 30 years in, and it just hits me now. We are the guys in the Wife Beater t-shirts who hang out windows and yell at each other. Oh my God. Oh, well, this revelation was not shocking at all. Moving on.
Said, every language has its own aesthetic and poetic strengths, and French sounds are really pretty on French words. Paris sounds beautiful in its native language in a way the Italian Parigi just doesn't. So at this point in my brainstorming, I thought I had it. All I had to do was establish some context about how foreign names are traded between languages, go back through the history of French, Italian, and English to show how the languages developed, and then simply assume that my gut assessment would remain correct with no further nuance to undermine my flagrant Italian language bias.
I love this. I just love that it has hubris intensifies right behind it, but slowly fading in. Showing that this entire video was derailed because he made an assumption it was very wrong. And because he's bringing in 3 different languages and how they're changing, and there are literally doctoral programs talking about what he wanted to do for a short little start of the year video. I know that because I looked at them and got freaked out because of how complex they were. Nope. No, just no.
Yes. Am I laying it on thick enough? Let's find out. Allora, cominciamo con la linguistica.
Let's do some linguistics.
Now, the topmost layer of all this is the understanding that almost nobody calls
languages can be rather complicated, and the social dynamics of names in the middle and hard linguistics become an ever more complex puzzle to untangle. Yay!
Other people what they call themselves in their native language. For a classic example, let's jump back to Italy's classical Roman past and their first interaction with Greece. Famously, not originally called Greece. The people who lived there called their homeland Hellas or Hellada, and that's an endonym, a name people use for themselves in their own language. However, when the big macho Romans rolled into the southern Italian city of Cumae, the locals said they were colonists from the city of Graia. So the Romans stopped devoting additional brain space to anything other than ass-kicking and blanket categorized everyone like them as Graiki.
And then that carried over to English and most other languages, who then stole it from English because English became the dominant language. Because English steals everyone else's vowels, consonants, and sometimes entire words and just treats them as their own despite what the original context was. So they literally renamed an entire country and it stuck based on... Okay, it's literally the Christopher Columbus, India, and then America thing. It's literally calling Indians instead of Native Americans because they thought they were in India, and then it's like, well, you're from India, so you must be Indians. Looks a little less elephanty than I thought.
Which became the word Greek.
This
is
an exonym,
a name given by outsiders in a foreign language. We're getting a little sidetracked from our stated purpose of Italy's story, but shush, Romans are Italians, get off my back. So the rest of Europe picked up calling them Graiki, and the exonym has stuck all the way to the present.
We'll accept this on the condition that we keep the Roman Empire after the West scuffs it. Oh god, they did actually keep it, didn't they?
But Hellas has another exonym from the opposite direction. See, from the eastern point of view, the nearest Greeks are in Ionia, so Assyrian and Phoenician records mention Ionia and Yadnana. Then later on, the Achaemenid Persians rolled up and called it Yauna, naming the rest of Greece the same thing. That name later morphed into Yunan, and that one stuck. So to this day, speakers of Persian, Turkish, Arabic, Hebrew, and Hindi still refer to Greece with...
Wait, Hebrew? Oh, I guess Hebrew would be Middle Eastern, yeah. And it would be far enough in that they wouldn't really have that. They would have trade, which is why they knew about it. Huh. So it's all some variation of that.
Some form of Yunan. Now let's not feel too bad about Greece here, because not only does this happen to everybody, but Greece takes the cake for pejorative exonyms, having literally invented the concept of a barbarian to describe people who weren't them.
Wait, Greece did?
Okay, now we're getting off track from Italy, so allow me to remedy that rapidamente.
That was Rome.
That's the most basic form of linguistic name transfer. Some outsider comes around and...
So anyway, that's when I stopped questioning my biases and made hasty generalizations that lasted 2,500 years. Oh god, it's a joke, but also completely accurate.
It's a brand new name based on their experiences and opinions of a place
small
or people, and understanding the context of those words can tell us as much about the speaker as the thing being named. But
they
even
didn't
within
give a damn.
one linguistic lineage, original endonyms can diverge over time and ultimately become an exonym. So to understand the origin of Italian place names, we need to know the origin of Italian. So we're going back to Latin for a sec, because after the empire in the West splintered apart in the 400s AD, the provincial variety of Latin across Europe and North Africa got a lot more pronounced.
Okay, I knew about a few of these. I know mostly got reinterpreted into the Holy Roman Empire. And I say interpreted rather than integrated specifically because that was a patchwork mess of what the fuck. Okay, we have a king, but do we really? There was issues. I don't know what the central town right here would be. I know this layer became France, but I didn't know there was 2 sections here. Oddly enough, you can see what later becomes this area. Sorry, I would love to know more about the situation, how the different break-off states became what they are. I know these are probably based around the major cities, but over here I actually don't know nearly as much. I don't know why.
Quite literally, as local flavors of the language evolved in isolation and diverged without the influence of the empire. Meanwhile, medieval Greek was doing just fine because go-go gadget better empire, and because of that political stability, Greek remained remarkably consistent over a very long time in comparison. In any case, Latin's fragmentation gave us the modern Romance family of languages, often grouped as Portuguese, Spanish, French, Italian, and Romanian. Everyone forgets Romanian.
Oh yeah. I mean, I also forgot Portuguese for some reason. I don't know why. I always forget that country. I mean, I know it's there. I can name it. I just never think of it. And Romanian. Huh. I did not actually realize that was a Romance language. I didn't forget about it. I didn't even know that part.
Forget Romanian. Be better. But it took a very long time before those modern national languages took shape. Spanish got its first grammar book in 1492, right at the end of the Reconquista, and Italy wasn't unified enough to have meaningful use for a standard national language until the late 1800s. And the further step of making everyone actually speak it took another...
Wait, they only unified in the 1800s? Oh, wow, that's... I'm not used to the idea that America unified before something. I mean, I know there's countries newer than it, but usually that's still debatable how unified those things actually are, and they're usually dictatorships. Italy's an established country by this time period. I would honestly have assumed it was earlier, but no, apparently not.
Another several decades. Hey, wait a minute, is that going to cause a problem for my stated thesis? No, it's fine.
I mean, technically, there is a standard precedent to ignore the reality of it and just say what you want, which you have literally just covered, or the other stated principle of, fuck it, blame the French.
It's fine. Yeah. But in between the OG Latin and the modern Big Five, there were dozens of medieval Romance languages. Former imperial provinces in the Balkans and North Africa had their own Romance tongues that survived until they were superseded by Germanic, Slavic, and Arabic. Meanwhile, look past the Big Five national languages, and there's more than 20 main branches. Iberia was home to Portuguese, Galician, Leonese, Castilian, which became modern Spanish, Aragonese, and Catalan. Then
I know Catalan is still around as a town. I wonder if there's some interpretation between the languages, how they have regional dialects that still exist. I only ask that because there are places in America which is much more culturally new because any previous culture was brutally suppressed. So I know we have regional dialects that are almost their own languages when you don't understand them. I wonder if Catalan still has a variation of Spanish that's very different. And I'm not even going to touch anything about up here. That's way too... Nope.
Moving up the Mediterranean coast into France, we run into the southern Occitan, then Arpitan, and the northern Languedoc, which became modern French. Then there's Italy with the absolute highest density of languages. Gallo-Italic in the northwest, Venetian, Rito-Romance, Tuscan, Central Italian, Neapolitan, Sicilian, and Sardinian. And most of those can be divided another 2 or 3 ways if you're feeling thorough. Contrary to how they're sometimes categorized, these are not dialects that have...
Wait, they're not dialects? A dialect, a form of a language specifically to a region usually derived from a larger language and mutually intelligible with other related dialects. So if they're not dialects, they actually were completely separate languages then? How much have they changed that fast?
Quirky little differences, but are otherwise mutually understandable. These are whole-ass languages that evolved independently over more than 1,000 years.
And they don't interchange
with their own influences, vocabulary, grammar constructions, and foundational pieces of literature. This makes sense when considering Italy was many countries for a very long time, all of them fiercely independent. Standard Italian only really became the standard in the 1900s, well after unification.
Wait, they only standardized the language in the 1900s? That would have been really complicated when you first set up. You're basically making a documentation of, hey, this is how you form the UN. Because it's a bunch of people who don't speak the same language, who are all in the same government. Unless the guy at the top was probably some kind of military power, in which case it's not because they can actually understand you, it's because they understand weapon pointed at your throat mean bad thing.
And the tradition of local languages remains so strong to this day that most Italians are considered bilingual in Italian and local. Wait, hold on a second, this is getting kind of complex. This is more pronounced in the far north and south of the country with Venetian and Sicilian especially, but less common in the center of the country near Tuscany. That's because Standard Italian is primarily based on the Tuscan language popularized in literature by Petrarch, Dante, and Machiavelli.
Wait. So one of the contributions Machiavelli made through The Prince, which I've heard and personally like to take as a sarcastic piece about here's how to become an absolute monster who will be killed by his subjects, but don't worry, I'm going to couch it in worse. It makes you want to do it because fuck you. One of the greatest contributions to that was actually cementing the Tuscan variation of the language as the dominant one. So by making a piece that appeals to horrible asshole people in charge and also having them corrupt themselves in a way that they will most likely be killed, he put a roadmap down for those horrible people in charge to embrace a style of language that they actually want to know and then probably spread it. I don't know if it actually worked out that way, and I'm terrified it might be right. Please tell me I'm wrong.
Okay, not so much Machiavelli, but he's my guy, so I gotta rep. I say all this to explain that
wrong.
Languages are complicated, and this is roughly when it clicked that my beloved lingua italiana is a surprisingly modern development, and is potentially not the final arbiter of what things in Italy are called. See, the gap between standard Italian and local languages has the fascinating consequence that most Italian place names are exonyms that don't match the local endonyms.
Oh.
Uh-oh. For instance, Naples in Italian is Napoli, but in local Neapolitan, Napele. Palermo is the same in English and Italian.
Wait, really? Oh, sorry, I'm not used to English ever matching up with anything. Because English would have established the name before here and Italian came after. So it literally just copied the homework. Oh, that feels weird.
Amazing. No, in Sicilian, it's Palermo. Let's try Genoa. In Italian, that's Genova. In Ligurian, Zena.
That's a difference.
Mantua in Italian is Mantova, but the Lombard for it is back to Mantua. Just like Milano, where the Milanese drops the final vowel to become Milan again.
Really? Wait, Milan is actually more accurate to the local dialect, so English is accidentally closer to what the initial language had for it. Or I guess a superseding language after Italian, or before Italian, after Latin.
Venezia. La mia bella Venezia.
My beautiful Venice, what are you doing?
Cosa fai?
Venezia.
Venisa. Oh, no!
So English literally just cut the A off the end. And it's mostly accurate? This feels so weird. I'm used to the standard English story being, and then English came along and fucked shit up because of the endonyms that apparently are the most common way we do things. But no, apparently we are being much more culturally sensitive to the initial languages that were established when we first contacted them. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I want to find out who codified the standard names in the English language for what we call things in this time period, because it had to come in during this middle period after Latin, but before Italy. So there's hundreds of years where that would happen, where people would actually have put in the effort to not just have an endonym, but an accurate representation pronounceable in a different language for what the initial option is. We don't do that now. But then we, as in people speaking English, did that then. I'm actually fascinated. What led to this drive for accuracy, apparently? And as an English speaker, that's never something I thought I would say regarding my own language. We don't do accurate well. We do, fuck you, I'm taking that language. Is it accurate? No, we're going to use it completely differently. It won't even be the same thing, but we're going to do it. Also, that vowel. I like that Y.
Oh no! That sure sounds like French and English, and not at all like its standard Italian counterpart.
Yep.
It was at this moment
So the
that I
Italian
realized my
language is
premise
actually
was
the endonym.
shattered. As it turns out, Italian is a wild card too. But my shock.
Things Blue learned this video. Language is dynamic, and even national languages can be fallible. There's so much to learn from the crossover between languages, even if it sounds weird at first. Just because it's Italian doesn't mean it's correct by default, you daft, dumb, blinded, Vembas junkie. What's a Vembas?
At the notion eventually brought me to a more comprehensive understanding of these languages. From there, the question of why English pronounces Italian names like that is ultimately very simple. Early medieval French had exonyms for Italy derived from their Romance kingship and shared roots in Latin. Some turned out rather similar, Venice to Venisa, while others struck more closely to the original Latin, getting Florence from the OG Florentia, while Tuscan went rogue with Firenze. France in turn imported all that to early English by way of the Norman conquest, and each language continued to evolve and diverge over the following millennium, to the point where the French...
So the French basically took it from the Latin base, and then it just happened to be close enough to the local base. It was then exported to the English base, which changed it and somehow matched up close enough. And then Italian came in and did whatever the fuck it wanted.
French and English place names are not hideously more off base than the surprisingly large gap between Standard Italian and the local languages. Sure, I like the sound of Standard Italian quite well, but I can't pretend it's the only valid option. So to answer my original question, why are Italian names so weird in English? Because translation is tricky. Exonyms are weird in every language, and the Romance gang is one big vaguely Latinate exonym soup. Even in
Translation is famously hard. Exonyms are always a trade-off. Romance languages are way more interconnected and screwy than the big five make it appear. Yeah. Honestly, though, I love just seeing how you can trace back wordings for, okay, here's the name for this, here's the correct name for this, here's the name we know will be recognized by various people, so if we use the correct one, they won't have any idea what we're talking about, so we have to use the wrong one, because that's what everyone assumes is right, so we have to use the right one. That's just a translation thing right now, and it definitely accounted back here if they cared enough about that back here.
In their own countries. None of this is French's fault. Languages are just complicated.
I mean, we can still blame the French.
Localization is fine. If Venezia becomes Venice in English, cool. It's fine. I'm fine. Just give me a minute.
Blue, I just want to thank you for engaging with one of my guilty pleasures, tracing back how words changed and were influenced by various locations and the cultures they derive from, to see how certain things were accurate to a certain time period or completely bastardized. Everything he just did, all the research showing that change, the progression, how English and French, based on completely unrelated symptoms of being French, and then English stealing from the French. Okay, it sounds like they just got it from the French, but I'm going to say stealing because honestly it just fits my internal narrative better. Were more accurate to the initial Latin, which translated more closely into the local language than the Italian just did its own fucking thing. And all of this, all of those progressions and how things change in the various names. This is the kind of entomological studies that I actually really geek out over. This is just a bunch of sugar to me. This is a bunch of big red meat covered in sugar, caramelized to hell and back, going, hey, it's going to taste good, but you're also going to get diabetes and a heart attack at the same time. A diabetes heart attack. But goddamn does it taste good. Basically what I'm saying is, I like this. I'm going to check out a lot more Blue stuff because frankly, in a lot of Red's videos lately, I've been asking, okay, but where are we getting all this history stuff from? What's going on? How is this all changing? And I want more of the context I've been told Blue adds when it comes to various locations and how certain historical precedents and actions have built up locations in Italy, Africa, America, Europe, various other locations in Asia. I'm not sure if they touched anything on Australia, because honestly, I know nothing about that continent other than most of it's a desert. And I could be wrong about that for all I know. But I want to know more. I want to see what's going on. I want to see how Blue treats things. I want to get more of the information he has because I've heard so many good things about him, man. I don't know where to start. I just want to pick this one because it just came out, and I'm just really curious. So if you haven't already, let me know about suggestions down below where I should chart with Blue stuff. I don't know English well, apparently. Where I should start with various videos Blue has done, or if there's a specific playlist to check out first. I don't know. I don't really care because I'm going to enjoy it regardless. Either way, I'll see what you guys regret. I can't speak today. I'll see what you guys suggest, and I'll check it out from there. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Adios.